Hello and welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and welcome to episode number 115 of the Jesus Enrique Rosas show. We are live through YouTube, on Rumble, and on X right now. And remember that the best way to support my channel, very easy. It's as easy as it gets. Like and subscribe, and if you can, make sure to share every single one of these topics and live streams with your family and friends. It's the mechanics of these live streams of these shows are pretty much the same. Today's gonna be a two-topic show. You know, it's Sunday. I wanted to take things a bit easier. I wanted to take a day off, but there's so much going on with this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, that I had to at least touch two topics today. The first one is going to be the anatomy of an actual lie. There's this interview that was, let's say, released by the Department of Justice. You have 2 hours of it, but we're going to look at 10 minutes in which we have the privilege of being able to dissect an actual lie. And when I say that as actual lie, I don't want to spoil much of this. I was trying to debating with myself, how do I frame this? Do I spoil the lie at the beginning? And I said, no, maybe I will let it run a bit, and then we'll find out if you can spot when he's lying, which is funny because, yeah, I have confirmed 3 times that he was lying what he's going to say. And the other thing that we're going to touch today that you might be interested in is that Peter Attia, a very famous, very prominent doctor that has a huge online footprint in every single platform, including but not limited to YouTube, X, and Instagram, happens to be Jeffrey Epstein's close, maybe too close personal physician. So this is gonna be interesting as well. So I don't know if you know about this guy, but if you're just finding out about him, we are in for a treat. Let's make sure to remember, I will keep an eye on your comments. These shows are 100% live. You can send your super chats, your super stickers. You can comment on Rumble, on X, on YouTube, and I will make sure to mention and comment whatever you say. As long as I can keep an eye on them. And of course, super chats and super stickers, I will 100% read them at the end. There's also a link in the description of all these shows to my book, Body Language in 40 Days, because spotting criminals, manipulators, toxic personalities needs a system. Let's say an infrastructure, and here is my system to spot these toxic personalities. Also, you will find the merch, all my official merch right there in the description. Email if you need to send any tips. And also, of course, if you want to donate to keep the lights on, then you can go ahead. But let's begin. Let's begin with this. And we're going to talk about this lie told by Jeffrey Epstein when his interviews to Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is this conservative figure in the United States in which is, let's say, not only conservative but quite controversial. It turns out that he was working closely with the Jeffrey Epstein as a public relations advisor to, let's say, reform his image in the public eye. In 2019, just before Jeffrey Epstein was jailed because of reasons, Steve Bannon was, let's say, doing all he could to make sure that, maybe people could forget that Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted of soliciting and procuring underage prostitution. So, yeah, I guess that's a thing. I don't know how people take Steve Bannon seriously, because no matter how much money you're getting, no matter how much what kind of benefit you would have, this he tried to be secret about that, just like Peter Attia. We're going to be talking about Peter Attia in a minute. But no, this is not something that normal people do. And yes, Steve Bannon was one of Epstein's closest friends. There is a lot of emails back and forth with Steve Bannon, again, trying to make all these recommendations for Jeffrey Epstein to renew his image in the public eye. Steve Bannon spent over a year coordinating with Jeffrey Epstein on how to rehab the latter's image. How do you rehab Jeffrey Epstein's image? That is quite an undertaking. The texts show that the documentary they were filming was to be paid for by Epstein, while Bannon would keep the profits. Bannon has refused to release the hours of footage, but in the massive release of both files and images and videos from the Department of Justice like 2 days ago, there was this 2-hour clip of the 15 hours that we know that Bannon recorded of Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein was here. I'm going to try to explain what you're about to see here. I'm going to give you hints so you can, let's say, tell when he's going to say the lie. And after he lies, after he says the thing, I will make the big reveal and explain what is this about. But what you're about to watch is him explaining back in the day, back in 2008, when he was in jail, again, for the charges that I mentioned. He was explaining that he broke this kind of deal between these two huge companies. And he did it reads like this absolutely out of Netflix, let's say, documentary. Sounded really interesting. I was writing an article about this and I said, wait a second, something that doesn't fit in here. And the other tip that I'm going to give you is that you're going to notice that he uses, I'm not going to mention what is that he's going to do, but I'm going to suggest that you notice that he's going to use hypnosis tricks, so to speak, at the beginning of this. Okay, let's watch the clip and let's watch an actual lie being told in real time. So here we go. Just pay attention, make sure you don't miss everything. I will make short breaks just to specify a couple things to set the record straight about some technical points. But here we go.
Afternoon, September 14th, I think it was, 2008.
Okay, this is important. They're talking about a specific date, Sunday afternoon, September 14th, 2008. Okay, that is going to be extremely important. One tip, Epstein had entered jail in June 2008. I'm going to repeat that because that is important. Epstein had entered that jail in June 2008 for his conviction.
It was 2008. Is when they were working feverishly in Midtown Manhattan at the Lehman Brothers offices and at various law firms around town, and with the Secretary of Treasury and the Federal Reserve, what they're going to do with Lehman. They decided they weren't going to save it. And so they prepared to put it into bankruptcy at the opening of the market in London the next day.
Notice the way that he smiles, that he is recollecting what was happening at that moment with Lehman Brothers on September 2008. Both Treasury and the Federal Reserve were trying to decide what to do with Lehman Brothers. If they were going to bail it, you remember the crisis back in 2008, and what was going to happen with that.
How did you hear about what was going to happen to Lehman Brothers, and what did you immediately think when you heard they was going to be put into bankruptcy?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was in solitary confinement September 14th. And again, some of the public stories about the wonderful time I had in jail and my work release, which didn't come till months after. I'd been there since June in an 8x10 cell with a bed in the back, a 6-foot bed in the back, a chrome sink with a toilet attached to it, and a little piece of metal sticking out that was supposed to act as a table. Now, since I was in jail, there were no books. Why? There's no library. No library, but you're in jail. No, I was in jail, not prison. So in jail, I was in a place what's called the Special Housing Unit, which is for the roughest, toughest, meanest people.
Okay, I need to pause just to mention that I think it was the first time I actually listened to Jeffrey Epstein properly, because we had those depositions back in the day, but the sound was not as good as this one. And you hear a mellow voice. It basically fits the guy. It's a bit strange, but notice how he describes everything around him. That is important, and that will be important in a minute.
They had put me there, they said, for my own protection. So I was in an 8x10 cell with a little slit in the door where they would serve my food on a tray about 9 inches by 4 inches. And then as soon as I finished eating, they would take the tray and close it down. And one of the guards said, "Do you understand there's Wall Street's crashing. I'm worried about my pension fund. What should I do?" And I said, "Sorry, Wall Street's crashing? What's happened?"
Notice how he pauses, how he narrates what the guard said, all those details, how he sets up the story.
And he said, "There's some crisis and some companies are going bankrupt." I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah, it's all over the papers. We're all terrified we're going to lose our life savings because we have either a 401k or our pension funds. We don't know anything about money. Mr. Epstein, can you tell us, like, what's going on? Am I going to be able to afford my children's education? Am I going to be bankrupt like this company called Lehman Brothers?" And there's another company in the front page today called Bear Stearns. "Oh, no," I said. Why? Because that's the company I was a partner in. And in fact, that was a company I had a very large investment in. So, as a great story.
Here comes the great story.
I didn't have my Wall Street Journal, but in the early mornings, you're allowed to make 2 phone calls, collect. And when you pick up the phone, you can dial a number, and when the person picks up, they say, "You're getting a call from the Palm Beach County Jail. Will you accept reverse charges?" And the person either says yes, and the call goes through, or the person says no. The person I had called was Jimmy Kane, the president of Bear Stearns. And I said, "Tell me what's going on." And so that my knowledge of the financial crisis happened with Jimmy, who was at the center of the storm, telling me about what Lehman had gone under, and they were trying to figure out a way, should they bail out Bear Stearns?
Well, I know that you might have noticed by this point all the times he had made this pacifying gesture of touching his nose. I don't know if he was doing something with his nose before or this interview, but yeah, that is notable. That was I think I have counted 3 or 4 times. We're gonna continue, but maybe you are already noticing that there's something odd with these recollections.
Did it strike you at the time of the mess you had made of your life to be in a situation that you're one of the greatest financial minds in the world, looked at by world leaders and asked your thinking by the most prominent and important people in the world?
Notice how Bannon says, "Oh, yeah, you think that you being one of the greatest financial minds in the world?" No, Jeffrey Epstein was not one of the greatest financial minds in the world. That's what many people mistakenly believe, because he did not have amazing abilities in finances. He had a combination of knowing finances to an extent and knowing how to connect people together. That was his superpower, the combination of those 2 skills.
And here you are in solitary confinement. You got to make a collect call to somebody. Did it strike you at the time how all the threads of your life had come together and put you in a position, or you had put yourself in that position?
For those of you arriving late, remember that this is Steve Bannon interviewing Jeffrey Epstein, and Steve Bannon was in charge of making Jeffrey Epstein look good. He was also training Jeffrey Epstein with these rehearsals in case of a 60-minute interview that never happened.
No.
So it never struck you when you had to make one of your 50% of your collect calls that day, you call the president or the head of the CEO of Bear Stearns.
Notice how Jeffrey Epstein smiles at that moment. That smile.
50% of your collect calls that day, you call the president or the head of the CEO of Bear Stearns. The biggest financial event in your life is taking place, of which one, every important person in the world would be seeking your opinion. Number two would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to apply your craft. Number three, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make money if you were smart, and obviously you're smart.
And obviously you're smart. Again, the amount of brown nosing from Steve Bannon was disgusting.
You're telling me here, truthfully, that it never hit you at all of how you'd ended up in a place where you had to make a collect phone call from a jail cell that was 6x9 with a steel bed and your food being passed in through a slot.
The question you want to ask is, who was the other call to?
Okay, who was the other call to?
The other call was to my friend at J.P. Morgan, who was then, I didn't know it at the time, trying to buy Bear Stearns. So at one point, I had two phones. It was difficult because they're afraid people are going to hang themselves with the phone cord. So they don't actually come together and they're pretty short. So I was actually going between two phones talking to Bear Stearns and J.P. Morgan at the same time.
So I'm going to rewind 20 seconds. I'm going to make you watch this again and try to imagine this and picture this. Epstein says that he was in his cell, in his special cell that has this slot in which he got his food, and he got two phones somehow speaking on one side to Bear Stearns president or CEO, and on the other side, J.P. Morgan. We're trying to deal with this, what was happening with this crisis. That is his words. I'm going to rewind just in case and pay attention to the cadence of his voice, the tone of his voice, his gestures, how he illustrates the phones with his hands, because that is important.
The question you want to ask is, who was the other call to?
Okay.
Notice, he wants the question to be asked. Oh, I was on the phone simultaneously broken this between two very important people, and he raises his eyebrows. Notice how he raises his eyebrows at that moment.
The question you want to ask is, who was the other call to?
Okay. Who was the other call to?
The other call was to my friend at J.P. Morgan, who was then, I didn't know it at the time, trying to buy Bear Stearns. So at one point, I had two phones. It was difficult because they're afraid people are going to hang themselves with the phone cord. So they don't actually come together and they're pretty short. So I was actually going between two phones talking to Bear Stearns and J.P. Morgan at the same time. So I found it amusing.
And it never struck you about how to end up in a situation like this?
No, that would be probably means I would be too self-aware.
You can't possibly expect me to believe this.
I know. I don't believe it.
You're telling me that during that day, you never had a moment. You sat there and go, what the fuck have I done with my life that I'm in a 6x9 jail cell when I should be on a trading desk, or I should be in my $250 million greatest townhouse in New York City taking calls from the king of Saudi Arabia, the president of China, the head of Russia, the president of the United States, to save the world's population from a financial debacle.
Notice how Steve Bannon is putting this like Epstein is this, I don't know, superhero, this financial god that had the entire world in his hands. It's like that's the way that Bannon wanted to frame Epstein. That's what they wanted to, like, he saved so many people during that financial crisis, you have to thank Jeffrey Epstein that you still have your savings.
Honestly expect me to believe that never happened.
You're suggesting I was sort of somewhat depressed, and how could this happen to me?
I'm not saying depressed. I'm saying a moment of awareness of how could I get myself into this situation.
No, I would just say how strange that this happens. Just, it's strange. I'm wearing a jumpsuit and flip-flops.
What
given
color
to
was
me.
the jumpsuit?
Brown. Brown.
Brown jumpsuit.
Yes.
I notice I don't see you in a lot of brown.
No.
Brown jumpsuit and flip-flops.
Flip-flops, yes.
With no access to books, no access to newspapers,
No access to anything.
So there's another clip here, but he already told a lie, and he's going to double down on the lie. I'm going to explain the timeline. So I'm gonna go through what he just said. He said that he was in September 14th, 2008, in his cell in solitary confinement, and there was this debacle. Wall Street was crashing down. The guard tells him, what do? We don't want to lose our savings. And he has these two collect calls. One with Bear Stearns, in which he has had this huge investment. And the other with JP Morgan, because he said that JP Morgan was thinking about buying Bear Stearns at the time and bailing out Bear Stearns with the help of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. That actually happened. JP Morgan actually ended up buying and bailing out Bear Stearns. But there's a problem with the timeline. I told you to remember that Jeffrey Epstein entered his jail cell for his conviction in 2008 in June. You know when the buyout of Bear Stearns began and ended? It began in March 2008 and was finalized. Bear Stearns existed no more in May 2008. Anybody can do a very quick Google search, and everywhere you're going to find the exact same information. Everything that happened between JP Morgan Chase and Company and the acquisition of Bear Stearns under the patronage of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury ended, finalized, by May 2008. In that date, in that month, Jeffrey Epstein was still a free man. You understand the absolute craziness of what Jeffrey Epstein just said? It's not like, oh, maybe he messed up the dates. Maybe, well, you can have recollections of something that happened 10 years ago. Maybe you're messing up the dates or something. No. The thing is that when this actually happened, Jeffrey Epstein was not in jail. And when he was in jail, in solitary confinement, actually in September, Lehman Brothers was in trouble, but Bear Stearns did not exist. And the guy that he said that he had called this, he said this name. I don't remember the name. Let me go through the name just in case. Just set this record straight. Say it. So the dials 1, and Jimmy Kane. He says that Jimmy Kane, he was speaking to Jimmy Kane in September 2008, the CEO of Bear Stearns. You can look for Jimmy Kane online, and you will find that Jimmy Kane was no longer related to Bear Stearns since January of that year. So everything that you have seen so far is made up. I mean, I had never seen something like this, like ever. I have seen people lying. I have seen people make up things, having contradictions here and there. Making up things, making up story that I had two phones, and you saw the gestures, you saw the voice did not change. He had this was gloating about, I was talking to these very powerful people, and none of that, it couldn't even have happened. It was impossible. It was impossible by any means. And he was just recording that. I guess that is one of the reasons why Steve Bannon didn't want these recordings to come out. Not only because, one, he looked like a brown noser, and I don't know who could take Steve Bannon seriously after trying to, I don't know, rehab Jeffrey Epstein's image. And two, that you can guess that this was full of lies. This is like 2 hours long. I'm going to show you only 10 minutes of this. And you have just seen the way that Jeffrey Epstein could have lied to anybody. And it's baffling how he does that with such a natural effect. And this is a way that you're going to try to pinpoint, you're going to try to spot something, and it's going to just fly. I mean, again, I was writing an article. I did not write the article at the end. I have yet to write that article. And I said, wait a second, there's something here that doesn't fit. And there are more inconsistencies in the next clips that we're going to watch. But I found that this was the most amusing way of discovering. These clips are shorter. Immediately after, he begins to make this analogy with medical systems, how a doctor saves parts of a person to save. I'm gonna play this, but he was really good at looking like he was smart. I mean, the guy must have been smart, but I don't know what was he looking for, like lying to Bannon this way. And Bannon tried to challenge him briefly about this. Let's keep looking the clip.
But what happened was, after this crisis, now it's on the front page of every newspaper.
I don't want to lose this day.
Sorry.
When you first heard that, was it Bear Stearns had been kicked into bankruptcy, 6 months before?
Notice that Bannon challenges him. What you're telling me that we are in September right now? Wasn't Bear Stearns kicked bailout 6 months before?
No, this is the same time. This is part of the same deal.
And you see that Epstein doubles down. No, this was part of the same deal. That is baloney. That is BS. He's literally lying to Bannon's face. He just lied to Bannon's face.
Bear Stearns had been kicked into bankruptcy, 6 months before?
No, this is the same time. This is part of the same deal.
I thought no. Bear Stearns, they saved Bear Stearns and didn't save Lehman Brothers. That's
right.
6 months before they had bailed out Bear Stearns, but Bear Stearns was still a zombie.
No, Bear Stearns was not a zombie. Bear Stearns did not exist. Literally did not exist by the moment Jeffrey Epstein put one single foot inside that cell.
A shell of its former self.
A former self. But they had, quote unquote, saved it. Why did they make the decision in your mind?
I noticed that he is kind of noticed that he was getting caught, and he did something that he hadn't done before. It was lowering his face a bit. As in, I have to get out of this one because I'm looking too good with this phony story of the phones. They're making this huge dealings with these very important people. But I don't know. I think that he noticed that he was getting caught. He was pushing the envelope way too much.
Why did they make the decision in your mind? Why did Hank Paulson and Bernanke what's this concept of moral hazard?
There was the Treasury and the Federal Reserve guys.
Explain to the audience what moral hazard is, and why did they save Bear Stearns 6 months before, and why did the smartest guys in the room decide not to save Lehman Brothers?
It's a good question. The real issue is I'd have to go back when you have these systems to the way your doctor responds to any type of emergency in your body. If they might decide to save your kidneys and let your gallbladder go because the gallbladder is less important to your overall system. If at that time, even it's not that long ago, the boogeyman was when said, well, what really happened? Jeffrey, what really happened? What is this financial crisis? And, some of the progressives and the right wing blame it on the banks. It was the banks' fault. And it's the fault of this very esoteric, unknown concept of derivative.
He begins talking about derivatives. He begins talking about all the financial stuff, but he basically steers the conversation away from whatever he made up that day, which absolutely did not happen. And one thing that I told you to make sure to spot at the beginning of this clip is the way that he detailed everything, the way that he detailed everything that was in his cell, the way that he recounted how the guard approached him, everything, that is a hypnotic, let's say, tool. The more that you describe things, the more that you describe the setting, it's like you're narrating a story, and every story is going to draw you in. And that is a way to set up what you're about to say. That, I broke this conversation between these two people, and you kind of reveal, notice how he not just Bannon into, ask me, who was the second person that I was on the line on those two phones? It's like he is revealing a story, revealing a mystery, and putting himself in the middle of this, adventure, saving the world from financial debacle. So that's what I needed you to spot. When people have this ability to manipulate through this hypnotic tactics, especially being so good at storytelling, so good at describing things, so good at pulling you in and putting you in the place of the action, like if you were living a movie. That is of course, a very persuasive tool and can also be used for manipulation. So I told you it was important. 2 more clips and we're done with this, but it has been very fun to watch.
So was it Sunday or Monday?
Okay, was it Sunday or Monday? Because September 14th was a Sunday. You're telling me that you phoned your contacts and other offices on a Sunday and they were at the office? Or was it on a Monday? I didn't get it.
I take it was Monday morning when you made your 2 collect calls and you're talking to Bear Stearns on one hand and Morgan Stanley on the other.
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan. That was Monday morning. Did you, Jeffrey...
Notice pacifying gesture. He doesn't clarify it. He doesn't clarify it. Bannon is trying to clarify the timeline. Was this Sunday or Monday? And Bannon answers himself. All right, so it was Monday. Epstein doesn't say a thing because he knows that he keeps giving details about the made-up lie, about the lie, then he's gonna be exposed. So yeah, the pressure applying on him from Bannon, at least Bannon was trying to ask the question a couple more times. I think that you have to do when you smell that, something's fishy, something doesn't fit in here. That was the right approach, but yeah, under further scrutiny, Bannon would have realized that Epstein was full of manure.
Being one of the financial geniuses in the world.
Financial geniuses in the world. This is Bannon, for God's sake.
Did you understand what Lehman Brothers going into bankruptcy, the domino effect, that by Thursday the financial system would be under such extremis that if it didn't have $1 trillion cash infusion in the United States, it might collapse? Did you know that at the time? Did you view that at the time?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, I was so good, but I noticed everything. I saw everything. I don't know. He was training for some, eventually, that never happened, a 60 minutes interview. This 60 minutes show in which they interview people for 60 minutes, obviously. And if Steve Bannon would have noticed this guy that I'm trying to help, it's lying to my face. Why is he lying to my face? I think that Jeffrey Epstein was just playing with Bannon. Playing with him like I don't know, like a cat plays with his food. I think that he did not take Bannon seriously. Maybe he took his advice. Maybe he was going to use him in some way, but I don't know any other reason why he would make up these things in the way that he did. But it's amusing to
And
watch.
in fact, from my telephones against the wall with my little metal wires, because the next day I talked to another person in Washington about the issues of what I thought was happening, and I made the same discussion about the...
They were at the Treasury Department?
Yes.
So he also talked to the Treasury Department, but the next day, now we don't know the next day, I got lost again. This day was Monday, so the next day was Tuesday. And so you have all these numbers and all these places. And by the way, you said that you had no access whatsoever to anything. Did you have all these numbers, I don't know, in your memory? Do you have some kind of mental Rolodex of all the right numbers to call in every single scenario? And you could get through directly to these people just from your mind? I don't know. I want to understand that. Again, one thing that I always advise you in terms of finding out if someone is lying is to make sure that you visualize every single detail that they say, because then you say, okay, you're saying the next day. All right. What was the next day? Are we talking about Monday or are we talking about Tuesday? That is important. How did you have the numbers? How did you know the numbers that you have to dial? Do you remember every single number? You have some kind of, I don't know, ability to remember thousands of numbers, potentially thousands of numbers. But you can imagine that this guy's contact list could have been quite huge. And you can imagine that he wouldn't have had that contact list with him in jail. Again, so many questions that you can come up just by visualizing the guy in his cell, the way that he wants you to visualize him in his cell, but realizing, okay, no, this simply doesn't, this doesn't work. This simply doesn't work. So, but we're about to end this clip.
So in a 6x9 cell in
The phones were outside the cell.
in Palm Beach County, California,
West Palm Beach, Florida.
West Palm Beach, Florida.
This was your juice diet.
West Palm Beach, Florida. West Palm Beach, Florida. West Palm Beach, Florida. You're making a call to Washington, D.C. to talk to some deputy secretary of Treasury.
Someone in Treasury.
Right. Someone
Right.
in Treasury.
Right.
And that does not, the night before you go to bed, it doesn't dawn on you at all. You never have a moment of self-reflection that, how did I end up on this metal cot when I should be at the center of things?
No, I had a telephone, so I said, I can talk to, it makes no difference where I am. In fact, I'm still talking to the same person if I was at my home in Palm Beach. But I'm
the
here in
difference your
jail.
home in Palm Beach.
I can dial my own phone.
That's bullshit. No, but you can also make 1,000 phone calls. Here you got to make one, and he's got to take.
Think
the
how much
seconds.
better that was. I had to decide who was the right person to call. That was unusual for me.
Yeah, he had to decide who was the person to call, but how did he get that number? There's a very interesting comment here. Thank you, beautiful Messy Ball, for this. Epstein served 13 months on work release. He only served 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. This is important because this is how I noticed that something did not match. Because it was my understanding, what beautiful Messi says, that he was from Monday to Saturday, he could just go to his home, go home and work from his office. That was the arrangement. So, yeah, the arrangement was quite lenient. He could just go home and come back to spend the night in prison. And he spent Sunday, the whole Sunday, and that was every day. And I said to myself, wait a second, if he had that arrangement, why did he say that he was in solitary confinement? And he indeed was in solitary confinement because that arrangement of the 12 hours that he could just go home, that was from October 2008 onwards. All right, so from June to October, he was indeed in solitary confinement in jail. So that checks out. What doesn't check out is the rest. And now you know, and now you saw the anatomy of a flat-out lie. How somebody lies to your face, uses every resource, and when it feels that his corner, he makes sure to not give any more details. In fact, make sure to avoid answering certain questions like, what was the day? Was Sunday? Was Monday? And Epstein just shut up. But I would like to know, what do you think about this in the comments? My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Bar Language Guy. Much love and bliss. I told you that some of you are new to this live streams. I make sure to, compartmentalize these topics. I just close the topic of the live. This was a longish one. I don't know if I'm going to publish this as a standalone one. But we need to talk right now about Peter Attia. And some of you know this guy. And this is absolutely, I'm going to include this one as a standalone video. So let's begin talking about this. So among all the revelations of the Epstein files, we need to talk about the Epstein's personal doctor, which is this guy, Dr. Peter Attia. You might have heard of him. He's quite famous online everywhere. He has this book, Outlive, because he is focused on longevity. And here I'm going to talk about this because let's say that he appears close to 2,000 times in the Epstein files. I mean, I have already told you that appearing on the Epstein files per se doesn't mean anything, but if your name appears close to 2,000 times, then statistically, we should take a closer look. And that's exactly what we are going to do with this section of this video. Former national level tic-tac-toe player, still play for fun, but not quite as good. Also, he, self-deprecating bio, very good. 500,000 followers on X, so that is nice. 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Peter Attia, MD, all right. Very successful on Instagram as well. 1.7 million followers. I don't know how they call that. Yeah, followers on Instagram. And I'm going to give you a glimpse on what we are talking about, or who are we talking about. This guy, in his book Outlive, by the way, shout out to Dr. Cameron Maximus, who compiled a very good thread about all the, let's say, the most disgusting stuff that appears on the Epstein files about Dr. Peter Attia. In his book, Outlive, the book that you saw, this one, the same book that he has prominently on the banner of his account, what did he write on his book? Peter Attia shares that his 1-month-old son almost died and his wife begged him for 4 days to come to the hospital where she was alone, but he didn't due to his quote-unquote important work in New York. What do you think was that important work? Yeah, you guessed right. Turns out that important work was meeting Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah, I wish this was some sort of a joke. We're going to analyze that in detail, but there's a couple things about here. For example, beyond disgusted that Peter Attia, MD, a man who I have followed for years and genuinely looked up to, is in the Epstein files over 1,000, not over 1,000, it's close to 2,000 times. And yeah, this is one of the things that people are mentioning the most. Let's say he said on an email to Jeffrey Epstein, his words, a woman's private parts are indeed low carb. I mean, he's not wrong, but I guess that this is odd. I think it's creepy. Still awaiting results on gluten content, though. Okay, that is a joke. Man, boys joke all the time, but this plus the 1-month-old son thing. Peter Attia being Epstein's concierge doctor is by far the weirdest crossover, says Alexander Juan Antonio Cortez, and for real, I agree with that. Champagne Joshi, Dr. Peter Attia, in a 2016 email, see you next time. Hopefully, Jeffrey Epstein in town when I'm back in 2 weeks. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. All right, brother? Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. And the comments, I needed to go to his latest video on YouTube for the comments. Yeah, don't mind me. I'm just here for the comments. I needed to leave a comment. At this point, Alzheimer's would be a welcome ailment for this guy. That video was about Alzheimer. The thing about Peter Attia is that I can tell anyone about his lifestyle. I need to talk about a couple more things about this. And I'm going to go to the thread compiled by Dr. Cameron Maximus. Again, go follow Dr. Cameron for this. The Epstein files just confirmed that Peter Attia was always trash. This here is there's a message from Jeffrey Epstein, or he was replying to a message that the message said, got a fresh shipment. So Jeffrey Epstein wrote to this guy, Peter Attia, with the subject line, got a fresh shipment. All right then, nothing suspicious at all, especially coming from someone, and this was in 2015, someone who 7 years before had been convicted of procuring and soliciting underage prostitution. Nothing to see here. Move along. The biggest problem with becoming friends with you, the life you lead is so outrageous and yet I can't tell a soul. The life you lead, Peter Attia to Jeffrey Epstein, the life you lead is so outrageous and yet I can't tell a soul. Ho, ho, ho! Oh my God. Oh my God. And sounds like he had an affair. Okay? Well, I'm going to read the circumstances of that thing with his 1-month-old son who literally almost died and was at the hospital for 4 days. And meanwhile, Peter Attia was doing who knows what with Jeffrey Epstein. So there's this email from June 2018. Neither Jill, my wife, asked me to move out in February, which I did. And a few weeks later, I realized Kelly was pretty bad for me and broke things off fully. So he had an affair. His wife moved away. Thank God. I think that she made the right decision, but he was with this. I don't think this was a good man at all. Here's Peter Attia emailing Jeffrey Epstein's assistant about staying at his New York apartment, like how most doctors stay at their patients' places, and how he goes into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when he doesn't see him. All right. So Peter Attia tells Jeffrey Epstein that a woman's private parts are low carb. Okay. If any doctor suspects about any form of child exploitation, it's mandatory for him to tell, a well-known law in every American state. You think that Peter Attia was not aware of what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein? Are we to believe that? No. Peter Attia loves to make fun of obsessive people by saying that they are majoring in the minors. Now we know that he was just projecting. This video is much better to watch on my this one here. I'm gonna play this video right here. This guy wants to expose the deal. I think that he exposed himself.
I'm gonna have French fries. Should I at least have my French fries made in lard as opposed to polyunsaturated fat and seed oil?
How about you have them without Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, I'm going through Jeff withdrawals. Bro, you want to know what's insane about being friends with you? I can't tell anyone about the life you live. Huh?
Yeah, it's so wild. It is wild. And again, I'm gonna show you just a few of these documents, but people are going through this, and it is bad. And Cameron Maximus also had pointed out that in his TED Talk, Peter Attia's TED Talk, he had this sub story about, how we need to do better. And when you notice how he speaks about, the way that he sobs and begins like kind of weep about his patients. I'm going to say it. It is okay if you're a man and you need to cry. But there is only one person, let's say person, that you could allow yourself, that you could allow to see you crying. That is God. If you're a man and you need to cry, very well, we sometimes need to cry. That is okay. But the only one that can see you crying is God. That is between God and you. And that's it. Crying, okay, sometimes, okay, maybe I don't know, there are circumstances in life, someone died. All right, I will give you a pass. That is one pass that I can give you. But you absolutely never cry or hint at crying in front of any cameras, much less in front of an audience during a TED Talk. Because, okay, you're either pathetic or a psychopath. One of two. There's no middle ground here.
We can't keep blaming our overweight and diabetic patients like I did. Most of them actually want to do the right thing, but they have to know what that is. And it's got to work. I dream of a day when our patients can, shed their excess pounds and cure themselves of insulin resistance, because as medical professionals, we've shed our excess mental baggage and cured ourselves of new idea resistance.
I don't want to keep playing this. He keeps weeping and talking about this with his broken voice like he cares. And thus I don't want this morons that TED Talk flag my video or anything. So this I need to read this because this is in his book. He details the exact timing of what happened with his son. I'm going to read this. I wasn't just some garden variety road raging maniac either. It was much worse than that. A few months earlier, and he is very specific, on Tuesday, July 11, 2017, to be exact, I had received a call from Jill, my wife. She was in an ambulance with our infant son, Ayrton, on the way to the hospital. For some reason, he had suddenly stopped breathing and fallen unconscious. His eyes were completely rolled back in their sockets and he was lifeless and blue with no heartbeat. Again, this was written by himself on his book. Only the quick reaction of our nanny had saved him. She rushed him to Jill, who is a nurse. Her instincts took over and she immediately put him on the floor and began performing CPR, rhythmically but carefully pressing her fingers on his tiny sternum as the nanny frantically dialed 911. He was barely a month old. By the time the firefighters stormed into the house, about 5 minutes later, Ayrton was breathing again and his skin was turning from blue back to pink as oxygen returned to his body. The firemen were stunned. We never see the kids come back, they told Jill. To this day, we still don't know how or why it happened, but it is likely what occurs when babies die suddenly in their sleep. They choke for a moment on their own saliva or some other vasovagal insult occurs, and their very immature nervous system fails to restart their breathing. When Jill called me from the ambulance, I was in New York. All right, and what were you doing in New York? In a taxi on 54th Street, on my way to dinner. After she finished telling me the story, that's a story for him, I just said, without a shred of emotion, okay, call me when you get to the hospital so we can talk to the doctors in the ICU. She got off the phone pretty quickly, and of course, it's obvious why she was upset. Our son had nearly died, and the right thing for me to say, the only thing to say, was that I was getting the next flight home. Jill stayed in the hospital with Ayrton, alone, for 4 days. She pleaded with me to come home. I called in daily to talk to the doctors and discuss each day's test results, but I stayed in New York busy with my quote-unquote important work. And what was this guy's important work? And you see in the documents, in the Jeffrey Epstein documents, you have a date and a month, day, month, year, everything. What was that important work at the exact same time that he details in his own book? So Jeffrey was emailing Peter Attia, let's have some dinner or something, 9:30. And Peter Attia told him, sure, I can come earlier also. If you have a hard stop at 10, let me know. Nice. Very nice. This is a model citizen. Impressive. Now we know that the $150,000 a year Peter Attia was charging his patients, like Jeffrey Epstein, was going to buy at least 3 150,000 watches he can show off on his podcast. Yeah, there's I don't know much about watches, but it seems that these watches each costs 150,000. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that people are going to ask about that. The Richard Mille rotation, silver chains, and tribal tattoos at 50 were pretty good tells something was off with Attia. Oh yeah. The signs were there. Okay. Also, Brian Johnson in the Epstein files 42 times. A lot to talk about, but, well, that checks out. And again, this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. There's a lot more stuff to cover in the Epstein files. I will be covering those. Every single thing that has popped up in, let's say, in the most gross way, but I'm gonna do it like a gentleman, right? Trying to blur the heavy stuff. And yeah, again, I'm going to close this topic so we can move on to the end of this episode. Let me know what do you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss. So, topic close. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. We're going to see a lot of stuff. I have my bookmarks are full with this, are to the top. And again, this is going to be a shortish one. It's going to be like 1 hour. I don't have more topics for you today, but I wanted to share with you these 2 topics that I thought that were interesting and were important. And again, every single one of these topics, I'm going to just republish them as standalone videos. Some of you have reached out to me. Jesus, I don't like 2 hours of show. I don't have 2 hours of show. I have shows in which I talk about some topics for 12 minutes. You can see every topic independently if you want. You want to do it. So, my body language buddies, thanks for your comments. Your comments have been just amazing. And yes, I'm going to take it easy. Go to bed early today just to take care of my voice. And we're going to come back tomorrow. My body language buddies, my name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Until we meet tomorrow with episode 116, remember the most important words: much love and bliss. Take care. Be safe. I love every single one of you. Bye-bye.